I'm Rachel, 34, a graphic designer in Omaha. For years, I've been the one holding my family together. The financial pillar. When Dad needed heart surgery, I paid the bills. When my sister, Sarah, wanted to go to college, I covered her tuition. When a storm tore the roof off their house, I paid for the new one. I even turned down a major career opportunity, a dream job in Chicago, just to stay close, just to be their safety net. So, last Tuesday, we were all at the family dinner table, the same table I paid to have refinished. Dad cleared his throat, his voice firm. We've decided. The house, the savings, everything goes to your sister. My stomach twisted. All of it? She deserves it for her business dreams, he said. Mom nodded, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She's got big plans. Heat climbed my neck. My sacrifices, my late nights, the Chicago job, all of it, just erased. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a utility. An endless bank account that would just keep funding their lives. And Sarah's dreams. I wanted to scream. But my silence burned hotter. Something snapped in me that night. If you've ever been the one to give everything and get nothing, you know this feeling. Smash that like button, because you won't believe what I did next. As I sat there at that table, their words, "She deserves it," echoed, and the plates in front of me just blurred. My mind didn't just go back. It fell. It fell back 5 years. I was in my old apartment, the small one downtown. It was past midnight, the blue light of my monitor painting the walls as I tried to finish a project. My phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice wasn't just worried. It was shattered. "Rachel, it's your father. The surgery. The insurance won't cover all of it. They're saying $15,000. 15,000. She was sobbing. "We don't have it. We have no way to pay it." I didn't even hesitate. Did I? I just said, "I'll handle it, Mom. Go, be with Dad." By morning, I had wired the money. Every cent I had saved. The money I was meticulously putting away for a down payment on my own place. I watched the balance on my screen drain to almost nothing. Just a few clicks, and years of my own dreams were gone. Dad came home. He recovered. He sat in his favorite chair, watched his shows, read the paper, and he never, ever spoke of it again. Not once. No thank you. No, we'll pay you back. Just silence. And I told myself it was fine. It kept him breathing. That's what family does, right? I just gave up weekend trips. I wore my old shoes until the soles split. I just worked harder. But the ledger didn't stop there. Just as I was starting to rebuild my savings, Sarah announced she was going to college. She didn't just want to go. She swore this business degree was her one true launchpad. She had this whole speech. "It's not just classes, Rachel. It's connections. It's the future." So I covered her tuition, $10,000 a year, for 3 straight years. I was barely making my own rent and car payments. I was living on instant noodles and cheap coffee, stretching every single dollar from my design clients. But I made it work. And her? She partied. Her social media was a constant stream of nights out, new outfits. She stumbled through her classes, changed her major twice, and barely graduated. And the ventures that degree was supposed to launch? First, it was a high-end online boutique that lasted 6 months and left a pile of debt. Then, it was a gourmet food truck that never even passed its first inspection. Each time, she'd spin these grand tales, and Mom and Dad would just nod. "Isn't she ambitious?" they'd say. And I just stayed silent. I just kept signing the checks to help cover the fallout. Then, 2 summers ago, that brutal storm tore through Omaha. It shredded their roof. Shingles and plywood, just gone. Mom pleaded over the phone, the sound of wind whistling in the background. "They're going to condemn the house, Rachel. We'll lose it." Another check, $8,000. I took on 3 new freelance clients that month. I remember my eyes burning at 2 in the morning, trying to get a logo just right so I could make the payment. I still see that roof when I drive past their house. It's perfect, sturdy, a solid, gray marker of exactly what I gave, what I sacrificed, all of that. So they could sit at a table I paid for and tell me Sarah deserves what's left. The roof, the tuition, the hospital bills, Those were just the things I could put a number on. The deepest cut, the one that still aches, that was Chicago. It was about a year after the storm. My portfolio was strong. A major design firm, one of the big ones, flew me out. They wanted me. Senior designer, $85,000 a year. It wasn't just the money. It was the office, the energy, the projects. It was a chance to finally build something for me. To be Rachel, the designer, not just Rachel, the family solution. I held the offer letter in my hands in my small apartment. I could smell the ink. I could see the view from that Chicago office window. And I said no. I said no because Mom had a health scare. It turned out to be nothing but the fear. And Dad was getting older. And Sarah was in the middle of her food truck disaster. Leaving felt like cutting a lifeline. It felt like betrayal. So I stayed. I stayed anchored to Omaha, to my small freelance clients, to their constant, low-grade panic, and each sacrifice, each no I said to my own life, just stacked up. They became stones on my chest, making it harder and harder to breathe. My parents, they never noticed. They never saw the 3 a.m. nights, my eyes burning from the screen, trying to finish a client's branding package just so I could make their mortgage payment on time. But Sarah? Sarah would sweep in around noon, fresh from a yoga class. She'd sit at the kitchen table, spinning tales of her next big idea. A new app, a subscription box, some new vision. And Mom and Dad would just beam. They'd cheer her vision. Dad would say, "That's our Sarah, always dreaming big." They never, not once, turned to me and asked how I stretched my last paycheck to cover the gas bill. They never asked how I was managing to keep their entire world afloat. Was I invisible? I didn't want applause. I didn't need a parade. I just wanted recognition. A thank you, Rachel. A we couldn't do this without you. Instead, I got their silence. The math. The math was the most brutal part. Because I was the one who saw the bank statements. About once every few months, Mom would get overwhelmed by the mail. She'd bring me this shoebox full of crumpled receipts and unopened envelopes, her hands fluttering. "Rachel, honey, you're so good with numbers. Can you just sort this?" So I would. And I saw it all. While I was paying for Dad's heart medicine and their home repairs, Sarah was burning through their credit cards. Designer clothes, weekend getaways, spa days. I saw the receipts. I saw the interest charges piling up. I was pouring water into a bucket, and she was at the bottom, drilling holes, all while Mom and Dad praised her for being so ambitious. I was funding her privilege. I wasn't just their safety net. I was the engine for her entire lifestyle, and I never said a word. Not when I handed the sorted bills back to Mom. Not when I saw the past due stamps I'd managed to stop. Not when I saw the absurdity of a $500 charge for a designer bag next to a final notice for the electricity. I just stayed quiet. I'd go back to my own apartment. It was bare. Not minimalist chic, just bare. The walls were empty because I couldn't afford to frame the prints I'd designed. My couch was a hand-me-down from a friend. My savings account, which I'd tried to rebuild after Dad's surgery, it just shrank. Every time I got a little cushion, the phone would ring. I thought that was the definition of family. I thought it meant giving until it stung. I thought that was the noble thing to do, the strong thing to do. But the sting just kept stinging. It never stopped. It hollowed me out. They didn't just ask anymore. They leaned. They leaned on me with their full weight, expecting I would always be there to hold them up. I wasn't a person. I was a structure. I was the load-bearing wall of their entire lives. And Sarah never offered a cent. She'd breeze in while I was at their kitchen table, laptop open, untangling their tax situation. She'd be wearing new earrings, little gold ones, or a new jacket. She'd kiss Dad on the cheek, grab a coffee, and start boasting about investor meetings she'd just had. "Oh, it went so well," she'd sigh, flipping her hair. "They're very interested in my new concept." And I'd be sitting right there, invisible, transferring money from my account to theirs to cover the bills she and her concepts were racking up. Mom and Dad just ate it up. They'd look at her with this awe. "She's our dreamer," Mom would say, her voice full of pride. "That's our star," Dad would add, patting her hand. They never, ever looked at me, surrounded by their financial wreckage, and said, "Rachel, how are you managing all this?" They never asked, "Are you okay?" They never wondered if maybe, just maybe, I had a dream, too. No, why would they? The sun comes up, the bills get paid. Rachel handles it. It's just what I do. I thought loyalty meant putting them first, always. But what happens when putting them first means you're always, always last? What happens when it erases you? Those years of giving, of being the silent, reliable one, they left me empty. My future wasn't just on hold, it was fading. It was a watercolor painting left out in the rain, the colors just bleeding away until nothing was left. I had built their world brick by brick. I'd paid for the surgery that kept Dad in it. I'd paid for the roof that kept them dry. I'd paid for the education that was supposed to launch Sarah. And as I sat at that dinner table, staring at their faces, I finally realized the truth. They'd never valued the bricks, and they had never valued the builder. I couldn't keep giving everything I had for nothing. I was pulled back to the present by the sound of my father's voice, full of that casual, definitive authority. He was looking at my sister. "The house and our savings," he said, "they're going to Sarah. She deserves it." Mom chimed in, not looking at me, but at Sarah. "Sarah's got ambition. She needs this to build her future." Ambition. My breath just stopped. It caught in my throat. I looked across the table, past the gravy boat I'd bought them last Christmas, and I saw Sarah. She was leaning back in her chair, a small, smug glint in her eyes, the look of someone who had been waiting for this, who felt entitled to it, who had always known she'd come out on top. My heart didn't just sink. It pounded, a hot, sick rush of adrenaline that filled my chest and made my hands go numb. The house I had saved with that roof payment, the savings I had propped up month after month by sacrificing my own. They were just handing it all to her, as if I was a shadow, as if my contributions were just expected, like the tide coming in. I wanted to yell. I wanted to throw my glass and list every single sacrifice, every late night, every dollar. Dad folded his arms, satisfied. "Sarah's got big ideas," he said, glancing at her with this deep, paternal pride. "She'll make something of herself." Make something? The words rattled in my head. I held this family together. I kept you from drowning. I am the one who made something. I made this possible. Sarah spoke up then, her voice bright and sharp, cutting through my silent rage. "I've got plans in motion," she said, flipping her hair. "This is my shot." She didn't even glance my way. My presence didn't matter. Mom reached out, touching Sarah's arm. "We're behind you," she said, her voice warm. Her eyes, her warmth, her support. It was all for Sarah. Internal monologue. "We trust you, Sarah. Not me, never me. I'm just the bank. She's the dream." The air in that dining room felt thick, like I was trying to breathe underwater. I shoved my chair back. The sound of the wood scraping against the floor was sharp, violent, the only sound I could make. "I need a moment." My voice was low, tight. They barely noticed. Sarah was already spinning some new plan. Mom was smiling. Dad was nodding. I stepped out onto the porch. The cold Omaha night air bit at my skin, and I was grateful for it. It was real. Their words echoed in my head, over and over. "She deserves it, deserves it." I had given them everything. My time, my money, my future, and they had given it all to her. Something didn't just snap. It broke. A clean, structural break. I wasn't their anchor anymore. I was adrift. And for the first time, that felt like a good thing. A week passed. I didn't call. They didn't call. The silence was heavy. I met my high school friend, Jenna, at a coffee shop downtown. She's always been blunt, no filter, which is why I've kept her in my life. She slid into the booth, her face tense. "I heard about the dinner," she said, voice low. "But Rachel, there's something you need to know about Sarah." My stomach knotted. "What now?" Jenna leaned closer, her words sharp. "She's been burning through money. I'm not talking about lattes and new jeans. I'm talking new clothes, fancy trips, all on credit cards. And Rachel, she's racked up debt, and it's tied to your parents' house. I froze. My coffee cup felt heavy in my hands. Sarah's spending wasn't news. But tying it to the house? The one asset they had left? The asset I had just been told was hers? Jenna saw the look on my face and pulled out her phone. My cousin works at the loan office, she said, her thumb swiping. She wasn't supposed to show me this, but she knows everything you've done for them. She turned the screen toward me. It was a screenshot, a bank notice, a secured line of credit. Sarah had used the house as collateral. She had done it months ago, without Mom or Dad knowing. I didn't even finish my coffee. I threw a $10 bill on the table and walked out, Jenna's voice calling, "Rachel, wait," behind me. I drove straight to my parents' house, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The bank notice, the collateral. It was like a drum beat in my head. She didn't. She wouldn't. She did. I didn't knock. I used my old key and walked straight into the kitchen. Mom was at the counter, stirring a cup of tea, the afternoon light making her look tired, but calm, peaceful. I didn't sit down. I didn't say hello. "Did you know?" My voice was steady, sharp. "Did you know Sarah's been using the house for her debts?" Mom's spoon stopped. It clinked against the porcelain. Her face went pale, a quick, sick gray. "What? What are you talking about?" she said. But her eyes flickered. That quick, sideways glance she always does when she's cornered. She knew something. "I'm talking about a secured line of credit, Mom. I'm talking about Sarah gambling your home on her ambition." Mom's hands shook, just slightly, but she shook her head, clinging to the narrative. "Sarah wouldn't do that. She's just ambitious. She's trying." That word again. Ambitious. It broke something. Ambitious? I stepped closer, my voice rising, and I didn't care. "She is risking everything you have. Everything I've worked to protect. Why do you keep defending her?" Mom looked away. She turned her back to me, gripping the counter, staring out the window at the garden. Her voice was soft, quiet, and it was the most violent thing she'd ever said to me. "She's trying to build something, Rachel." She paused, then added, You're strong. You always manage." Sarah needs us." The air left my lungs. It was a physical blow. "You're strong. You always manage." It wasn't a compliment. It was a life sentence. It was the reason I was the mule, and Sarah was the pet. My strength wasn't a gift. It was my curse. It meant I didn't get to need. I didn't get to fail. I just had to manage. While Sarah got to need. She got to fail, and fail, and fail again, and be rewarded for it. My anger vanished. It didn't fizzle. It froze. It turned into something cold, and hard, and clear. I pulled out my phone. "You're right, Mom. I do manage." I walked over and held the screen in front of her face. The screenshot from the loan office, the bank's name, the account number, the outstanding balance. Her eyes widened. She stared at it. "How?" Her voice was a whisper. "How did you get this?" "Jenna," I said. "Someone had to tell me the truth, since you clearly wouldn't." Mom sank into a kitchen chair. She just deflated. The woman who had, 5 minutes ago, praised Sarah's ambition, now looked lost, her face a mask of shock and shame. I stood there, waiting. I waited for her to say, "We'll fix this," or "Thank you, Rachel," or "I'm so sorry." But she just stared at the table, her hands folded, silent. She was waiting. She was waiting for me to manage it. I'd spent my entire adult life protecting this family, cleaning up Sarah's messes, only to learn she'd endangered the one thing I couldn't fix with a single check. And my mother had let her, had enabled her, had praised her for it. I turned to leave. My voice was low, flat, and I'd never felt more in control. "You chose her, Mom, but she's the one sinking you." I walked out the door. A month passed, a long, silent trant days. My phone, which used to buzz with their constant, low-level needs, was quiet. Then, last night, a text from Mom. It just said, "The house payment is due." I stared at the screen. At those 5 words, She wasn't asking for the loan payment, just the regular payment, testing the waters, seeing if the bank was still open. My fingers hovered over the keypad. I thought of the Chicago job. I thought of my drained savings. I thought of, "You're strong, you always manage." I typed back, "That's not my responsibility." The words felt like a blade, sharp, clean, and final, cutting through years and years of obligation. I hit send. My text message was a declaration of war. I knew it. And the counterattack came fast. My phone didn't just buzz, it screamed. For 2 days straight. First, Mom's soft, pleading texts. Then Dad's stern, demanding calls. Then Sarah's entitled, furious voicemails. "How dare you?" I silenced them. Each unanswered ring was a brick in the wall I was building around my peace. My small Omaha apartment, once my refuge, now felt like a fortress under siege. Then, that evening, a knock. Not a polite tap. A sharp, insistent pounding that echoed through my apartment. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach dropped. All three of them, Mom, Dad, and Sarah, standing on my welcome mat, their faces a tense, awful tableau of desperation and defiance. I opened the door. Mom lunged forward first, clutching a folder. Bank notices were spilling from it. Official, terrifying letters. Her hands were trembling as she shoved them at my chest. "We're out of time, Rachel," she said, her voice cracking. All pretense gone. The bank will take the house if you don't help." I didn't take the folder. I leaned against the doorframe, my arms crossed over my chest. My heart was hammering, but my voice came out cold. "Sarah dug this hole," I said, my eyes locking on my sister. "Let her climb out." Sarah's face, which had been pale with panic, flushed a deep, ugly red. "You're betraying us," she spat, stepping so close I could smell her expensive perfume. "We're your family, and you're just walking away?" I let out a bitter laugh. It was a harsh, dry sound in the quiet hallway. "Betraying you? I have carried this family for years, Sarah. Every bill, every crisis, every single sacrifice. And you stood right there and watched them hand everything I saved to you." My words hit her, and she flinched. But Dad stepped forward, his presence heavy, his shadow falling over me. "This isn't who we raised," he said, his voice low, laced with a profound, bitter disappointment. "You're letting us fall apart." The accusation stung. It was a sharp, familiar twist in my chest. The guilt. He was deploying the guilt. But it didn't work. Not this time. Mom's voice broke the silence, soft and pleading, her eyes glistening. "Please, Rachel, just this once. We're your family." Family. That word. She used it like a key. Like it was the magic word that would open my wallet and my life and make me manage this. Just like I'd managed everything else. My heart pounded, but the fog of obligation was gone. It wasn't guilt I felt. It was clarity. A cold, sharp L3 spike of it. They are not here for me. They are here for what I can give. I stood up straight, away from the doorframe. "Family doesn't mean I'm your bank," I said, my voice firm, unshaken. "I'm done." Sarah looked like I'd slapped her. "You'll regret this when we lose everything." Dad's face hardened, his eyes turning to stone. He'd made his final judgment. "You're choosing yourself over us," he said, his tone final. A verdict. I looked him right in the eye. I didn't flinch. "Yes," I said. The word was quiet, but it filled the entire hallway. For the first time, I am. The silence that followed was absolute. They just stared. Mom's trembling hands. Dad's furrowed brow. Sarah's clenched fists. They were looking at a stranger. I stepped back. "You need to leave." Mom reached out, her fingers grazing my arm. "Rachel." I pulled away. "Don't," I said. "You made your choice when you picked her. Now live with it." I closed the door. The click of the lock was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. Their voices started up outside, muffled but persistent, pleading, accusing, then, finally, angry. I didn't wait for them to fade. I walked to my living room window, looking out at the Omaha skyline, the lights just starting to glow against the dusk. My phone buzzed on the counter. A new text, probably Dad, his final, stern word. Or Sarah, her last entitled plea. I didn't even look, I sank into my couch. The weight. The crushing, decade-long weight of their expectations. It was lifting. My pulse, which had been racing, finally steadied. It was quiet. It was a terrifying, profound quiet. Their problems, their debts, their house, their choices, they were no longer mine. Closing the door was one thing. Living with the silence was another. But the silence didn't last long. The next week, the whispers started. It began subtly. At the grocery store, a neighbor I'd known for years suddenly averted her eyes, her cart swerving into another aisle. Then my inbox flooded. Old high school friends, distant cousins. Hey, Rachel, is everything okay? Heard there's some family trouble? Sarah hadn't just been banging on my door. She'd taken her campaign public. She'd launched a full-scale social media assault, a series of long, vague, tear-stained posts about family betrayal and selfishness. She painted me as the villain, the cold, heartless graphic designer who, after making it, had abandoned her family in their darkest hour. Some people forget where they come from, she wrote. They'd rather watch their parents lose their home than lift a finger. My throat tightened as I read the comments. Strangers, and even people I knew, calling me ungrateful, heartless. My work email, the one for my freelance business, started getting strange messages. At my co-working space, the quiet hum of productivity was replaced by sidelong glances. Conversations stopped when I walked by the coffee machine. Then, Mom called. Her voice wasn't pleading this time. It was cold. People are talking, Rachel, she said, as if I were a child who'd misbehaved at school. The neighbors, our friends. They're saying you've walked away from us. I gripped my phone. Sarah is the one spreading this, I said, my voice sharp. She's lying to save herself. You know the truth. A long, heavy pause. Then, she sighed. You need to fix this. I need to fix this. I hung up. My hands were shaking. They weren't just letting Sarah's lies spread, they were adding fuel to them. Dad's email came next. It was formal, cutting. Your actions are tearing this family apart. People in town are calling us, asking if we're desperate. This is a shame you have brought on us. Your mother is a wreck. My actions. My shame. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. I'd spent 15 years preventing their desperation, and now, because I'd finally said no, I was the one causing it. They didn't just show up at my apartment, they showed up at my office. The glass doors of the co-working space swung open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and Sarah, marching in like a tribunal. My colleagues, the few who were there, glanced up, their eyes wide. The air went thick with tension. I stood up from my desk. My heart was pounding, but my expression was calm. Mom spoke first, her voice low, trying to keep it civil, but sharp with anger. We are here to talk sense into you. You cannot keep ignoring this. She threw the same folder of bank notices onto my desk, scattering my design proofs. I'm not ignoring you, I said, my tone even. I'm done fixing your problems. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes blazing. You're acting like you're better than us, she snapped. People are talking, and it's because of you. Because of me? I raised an eyebrow. You're the one who lied, Sarah. You're the one who took out a loan against their house and didn't tell them. You dragged them into this mess. Her face flushed, but Dad cut her off, his voice heavy with authority. Enough. We are losing everything. And you are sitting here, unmoved. I'm unmoved because I've given enough, I said, my voice steady. She made her choices. She needs to own them. Dad's jaw tightened. I never thought, he said, his voice low, that a daughter of mine could be this selfish. That word again. It was their last weapon. I looked at all of them. Mom, desperate. Dad, disappointed. And Sarah, just waiting. I turned my gaze to her. You made this mess, I said, my voice firm. Clean it up, call the bank, get a job, sell your car, fix it. For the first time, her defiance cracked. Her usual confidence was gone. I saw fear, real, pathetic fear. She looked to Mom, then to Dad, waiting for them to step in, to save her. They didn't. They just looked at me. I gestured to the door. We're done here. I have work to do. They stood there, frozen. Leslie lingered, her gaze locked on me, a mix of hate and desperation. You'll regret this, she whispered. I met her eyes, unflinching. No, Sarah, you will. They left. Weeks later, the truth finally came crashing down. It wasn't in a social media post, it was in the Omaha local paper. A neighbor sent me the link, the headline, Stark local family loses home to foreclosure. The house. The one I'd poured my savings into, the one with the roof I'd paid for, it was gone. The article was brief, but it was clear. The bank had seized the property. Word spread fast. The real story. Sarah's reckless spending, her secret loan, her lies. It was all exposed. The whispers didn't just stop. They reversed. Sarah's social media went silent. The posts about my cold heart vanished. Friends who had believed her lies, the ones who had flooded my inbox, began messaging me again. Their tones were apologetic. Rachel, we didn't know. I'm so sorry. I just heard what really happened. The local shop owner who had questioned me weeks ago, he called. He actually called to apologize. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt quiet. The truth was out. And it wasn't my burden to carry. Mom called one evening, about a month after that. Her voice was thin, tired. We're staying with your aunt, she said. The words were heavy with defeat. We lost everything. I waited. I expected her to ask for help, for money to get a new place. But she didn't. Instead, she just said, Sarah's gone. She left town, took a bus to, I don't know, California. She had run. She'd left them to face the wreckage, just as she'd expected me to pay for it. I'm sorry it came to this, Mom, I said. And I meant it. But my voice was steady. It wasn't my fault. She didn't argue. Her silence was a reluctant, painful admission. Dad never called. His absence was louder than any words he could have said. I walked through my apartment, the Omaha skyline glowing beyond my window. For the first time in my entire adult life, I felt too light, unburdened. I started saying no more, not just to them, to clients who demanded too much, to friends who only called when they needed something. My days became my own. My work, my career, which had always been squeezed into the margins of their needs, began to thrive. I took on bigger projects. I raised my rates. I started saving again. This time, for me, I'd lost their version of love, perhaps, but I had finally gained my freedom. This journey taught me the hardest lesson there is. Family doesn't mean owing someone your life. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. Sarah's lies and my parents' endless demands showed me that real love, real respect, shouldn't come with a price tag. You shouldn't have to manage someone else's life just to be worthy of their affection. I hope my story resonates with you. If it does, thank you for staying with me until the end. Please, share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in my place? And if you found value in this story of finding strength, consider subscribing to this channel for more. Your support means everything.